Greetings. I'm Bryn with the AAAS Office of Public Programs. AAAS is the nonprofit science society that publishes the journal Science. I'm speaking today with Dr. Carey Morewedge from Carnegie Mellon University, lead author of a report that will be published in the upcoming December 10th issue of the journal Science. In their report, Dr. Morewedge and his colleagues say that by simply imagining a stimulus in one's mind, a person can become habituated to it. In other words, repetitive thoughts of eating a candy bar can decrease one's drive to eat an actual candy bar. Dr. Morewedge, how did you make this discovery?
Well, Brandon, in our experiments, participants were brought into the laboratory, and we first asked them to perform an imagination task. So some participants were imagined repeatedly consuming 3 or 30 units of a food, such as M&Ms, and other participants were asked to imagine performing a different action, such as eating a different food or moving the food rather than eating it. So after participants had done this imagination induction, we then gave them all a bowl filled with a target food, M&Ms in this case, or this example, and we asked participants to eat some of that food from the bowl so that they could rate it later in a taste test. So when participants finished eating the food, we removed the bowl and secretly weighed it, unbeknownst to them. Afterwards, when we measured how much participants had eaten, we found that only participants who imagined eating more of the food, so 30 M&Ms rather than 3 M&Ms, subsequently ate less from the bowl. If participants imagined eating a different food or performing a similar task that did not involve eating the food, like moving it, they didn't exhibit this reduction in the amount that they ate. And other experiments we conducted that are reported in the study suggest that this imagined consumption reduced actual consumption because it habituated people to the food. It decreased their desire to obtain more of it, rather than changing how much they liked the food or whether they thought they'd receive more pleasure from eating more or less of it.
It seems to me that most people would believe that thinking of a food would actually make them want it more. So what's the difference here?
Yeah, so our findings are somewhat counterintuitive. So people think that imagining a food increases their desire for it and whets their appetite. So for example, you might think that imagining a steak might lead you to salivate or think about eating it, and it tastes, you can almost imagine how it tastes in your mouth. And our findings show that it's not so simple. So yes, merely thinking of a food or thinking about cues associated with the food, like how it smells or tastes, does increase our appetite for the food. But if we imagine consuming it, performing the mental imagery that would accompany its actual consumption, imagined consumption can actually decrease our desire for the food that we imagine eating.
So how might this repetitive mental representation be used in the future to affect other behaviors as well?
Well, we certainly hope that it can be used to help shape other kinds of behavior. And in particular, in eating, people tend to stop eating for 2 reasons. One is digestive feedback, and the other is habituation. And digestive feedback takes far too long for it to affect people's food intake in the middle of a meal, and habituation occurs more quickly. So we think that the results can be used to help people regulate their food intake. For example, right now we're beginning to test whether similar imagination inductions can be used to help people eat less unhealthy food once they've started, and also if they can lead them to make healthier food choices as well. But moreover, we hope this kind of imagery induction can affect cravings for other kinds of addictive substances, like cigarettes, and we're beginning to explore whether such repetitive mental imagery can help to reduce smokers' cravings.
Thank you very much for speaking with the Science Press Package today.
Thanks for having me.